Hi everybody, it's me, Albatross. Well, welcome to part 1. Well, no, actually, I guess this would be part 2 of the Gnostic texts. And in this video, I will be reading the Revelation of Adam, aka the Apocalypse of Adam. It was found among the other Gnostic texts in the Nag Hammadi library, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And like the other one, it does have some lines here and there that are missing. But I will read what we do have available. Okay, here we go. The revelation that Adam taught his son Seth in the 700th year, saying, "Listen to my words, my son Seth. When God created me out of the earth, along with your mother Eve, I went about I went about with her in a glory that she saw in the eternal realm from which she came. She taught me knowledge of the eternal God, and we resembled the great eternal angels. For we were higher than the God who created us and the powers with him, whom we did not know." So that very first paragraph says a lot, doesn't it? That we wouldn't find in the canonical Bible. Like, for starters, it says he specifically mentions Eve taught him this knowledge, right? So that's what he's claiming, that Eve, Seth's mom, taught him this. Okay, let's continue. And, and one more point that the first paragraph makes is that Adam is clearly saying, we were higher than the God who made us. What does that mean? What does he mean when he says that? How could he and Eve be higher than the God who made them? Let's continue and find out. And just keep in mind, when he says that it's like he's talking about two different gods in this text. And I'll tell you why it looks that way. Because on the one hand, he talks about a God with a lowercase g. And then on the other hand, he talks about a God with an uppercase G. And this goes on and on throughout the text. The one God with the lowercase g, and then the one with the uppercase G. And I will try to distinguish which one was which. When he said, she taught me the knowledge of the eternal God, lowercase g. So in the first paragraph, he was talking about a God with a lowercase g. This next paragraph begins with God with an uppercase G. God, the ruler of the realms and the powers, divided us in wrath, and then we became two beings, and the glory in our hearts left us, me and your mother Eve, along with the first knowledge that breathed in us. And glory fled from us and entered another great realm. Your mother Eve and I didn't come from this realm, but knowledge entered into the seed of great eternal beings. For this reason, I myself have called you by the name of that person who is the seed of the great generation, or its predecessor. After those days, the eternal knowledge of the God of truth, lowercase g, withdrew from me and your mother Eve. Then we learned about the inanimate as we did about human beings. Pause for a minute. So, let me see if I got this right. So, the uppercase God comes along, angry, and clearly says in wrath, and divides them. And then, whatever joy and glory they had in their hearts fled them, and the knowledge fled them. A little confused about that. Maybe he'll clear it up later. This paragraph isn't done yet. Okay. We recognize the God, lowercase g, who created us. We were not strangers to his powers, and we served him in fear and slavery. After these events, our hearts darkened, and I slept in my heart's darkened thought. So isn't that interesting? Adam is saying they served this God in fear and slavery, when they're supposedly in this paradise supposedly they're in Eden, but yet they were working as slaves, according to Adam. Okay, the next part. And I saw 3 persons before me, whose likeness I was unable to recognize. They were not from the powers of the God who created us. They surpassed glory, saying to me, "Rise, Adam, from the sleep of death, and hear about the eternal being and the seed of that person to whom life has come, who came from you and from Eve, your wife." All right, so then Adam saying 3 other divine beings appear to him who have nothing to do with the one who created him. Okay. When I heard these words from the great persons standing before me, Eve and I sighed in our hearts. And the Lord, the God who created us, so then I guess he's back, stood before us, and he said, "Adam, why were you both sighing in your hearts? Don't you know that I am the God who created you? I breathed into you a spirit of life as a living soul." Then darkness came over our eyes. Then the God who created us created a son from himself and Eve, her mother. What? Hold up. This is a new paragraph. Let me restate the first sentence of this paragraph. Then the God who created us created a son from himself and Eve, your mother. What? So there was like a 4th son? I'm going to come back to that. That's mind-boggling. Okay. ... That means that there's some lines missing. I knew a sweet desire for your mother, and the vigor of our eternal knowledge was destroyed in us, and weakness pursued us. The days of our life were few. I knew that I had come under the authority of death. Now, my son Seth, I will reveal what those whom I saw revealed to me, after I went through the period of this generation, and the years of the generation were over. So basically, he saw some kind of prophecy from these beings of what was going to come after him. Okay, here we are. We're talking about the, he's giving the prophecy for the flood now. That's interesting. I didn't know that this prophecy went all the way back to Adam. Okay. For rain showers of God Almighty will pour down so that he can destroy all flesh from the earth, including what is around them, along with people from the seed of those who received the life of knowledge. That life of knowledge came from your mother Eve and me. They were strangers to him. Afterward, great angels come on high clouds, who take those people where the spirit of life lives. The whole multitude of flesh will be left behind in the waters. God will rest from his wrath, and he casts his power on the waters, and gives power to his sons and their wives by means of the ark, along with the animals, whichever he pleased, and the birds of heaven, which he called and released upon the earth. And God says to Noah, whom generations call Deucalion, Deucalion. That's a different name. I know Noah has a lot of names in a lot of different stories, but okay. Look, okay, this is what God says to Noah or Deucalion. Look, I have protected you in the ark, along with your wife and your sons and their wives, and their animals, and the birds of heaven, which you called and released upon the earth. So I give the earth to you and your sons. In kingly fashion, you will rule over it, and you and your sons. And you will have no seed from the people who do not stand in my presence in another glory. Some become like the cloud of the great light, and those people come who are sent out from the knowledge of the great eternal realms and the angels. They stand before Noah in the realms, and God says to Noah, why have you strayed from what I told you? You have created another generation, so you can scorn my power. And then Noah says, I testify before your might that the generation of these people didn't come from me or my sons. And Those people are brought into their proper land, and a holy dwelling will be built for them. And they are called by that name, and live there 600 years in knowledge of incorruptibility. Angels of the great light live with them. No foul deed resides in their hearts, but only the knowledge of God. Noah divides the whole earth among his sons, Ham and Japheth and Shem. He says to them, "My sons, hear me. Look, I have divided the earth among you, but serve him in fear and slavery all the days of your life. You children must not go away from the face of God Almighty." ... A whole bunch of lines missing. The son of Noah says, "You and your power will be pleased with my seed. Seal it with your strong hand of fear and command. And then the whole seed that came from me will not turn from you and God Almighty, but they will serve in humility and fear of what they know." You know what I think is interesting about this text? It's that, like, I know it was found among the Gnostic texts, right? Well, most of the Gnostic texts were, like, written by, like, the disciples and stuff. Well, this, it would seem, would be more like, kind of like the Book of Enoch, like, much older than that, but also left out of the canonical Bible. So I'm very curious about this text. I mean, you know, I had never even heard of it before until I found it on the website, which will be linked in the description. But yeah, I just, you know, I'm curious about this text. Why not more people talk about it? Okay. Then others from the seed of Ham and Japheth come, 400,000, and enter another land and stay with those people who came from the great eternal knowledge. The shadow of their power protects those with them from everything evil and every filthy desire. Then the seed of Ham and Japheth forms 12 kingdoms, and their other seed enters into the kingdom of other people. They take counsel, eons, that are dead, the great eons of incorruptibility. And they go to their god, Sakla. Sakla? That's a new word. They go into the powers, accusing the great ones who are in their glory. They say to Sakla, "What is the power of these people who stood in your presence, who were taken from the seed of Ham and Japheth, who number 400,000? They were received into another realm from which they came, and they overturned all the glory of your power and the dominion of your hand." The seed of Noah, through his sons, has done your will, and so have all the powers in the realms over which your might rules. Both those people and those who reside in their glory have not done your will, but they have turned aside your whole throng. Then the God of the realms gives them some of those who serve them, ... They come on that land where the great ones are, who have not been defiled, nor will they be defiled by any desire. For their souls did not come from a defiled hand, but from an eternal angel's great command. Then fire and sulfur and asphalt are cast upon those people, and fire and blinding mists come over those realms, and the eyes of the powers of the luminaries are darkened, and the inhabitants of the realms cannot see in those days. And great clouds of light descend, and other clouds of light come down on them from the great eternal realms. Abrasax and Sablo and Gamaliel descend and bring those people out of the fire and the wrath, and take them above the eternal realms and the rulers of the powers, and take them away, there with the holy angels and the eternal beings. The people will be like those angels, for they are not strangers to them, but they work with the imperishable seed. I'm assuming they're referring to the flood. I'm thinking, I mean, yeah, it has to be. It has to be referring to the flood. And with the fire and the sulfur and the asphalt, Could that be referring to possibly the meteor that hit the North Ice Cap that caused the flood? I don't know. I'm just curious. I'm speculating now. Okay. We go on to the next part. Once again, for the third time, the illuminator of knowledge passes by in great glory to leave some of the seed of Noah and the sons of Ham and Japheth, to leave fruit-bearing trees for himself. And he redeems their souls from the day of death. The whole creation that came from the dead earth will be under the authority of death. But those who reflect on the knowledge of the eternal God in their hearts will not perish. They have not received spirit from this kingdom, but from something eternal, angelic. The illuminator will come, Seth, and he will perform signs and wonders to scorn the powers and their ruler. Oh, I bet, since we got to remember the context, this is pre-flood and pre-all this, I bet that Adam is referring to when Jesus comes. I could be wrong, I think. I think that's what he's talking about. But let's keep reading and find out. Okay. All right. Where was I?